Rico.
Welcome to the Capitalist Sage Podcast. We're here to bring you advice and tips from seasoned pros and experts to help you improve your business. I'm Karl Barham with Transworld Business Advisor. My co-host Rico Figliolini with Mighty Rockets Digital Marketing and the publisher of the Petrie Corner magazine. Hey Rico, how you doing today?
Hey, Carl. Good. Good.
Well, why don't we start off by introducing our sponsors for
Sure.
today?
Let's do that. First thing is we're at Atlanta Tech Park in the city of Peachtree Corners. And this is the podcast studio within that. It's an accelerator. Some people know incubators better, maybe. But it's a place where 90 businesses are here, startups, basically. And it's a facility that not only houses these startups, but also provide Financial Fridays,
Yep.
Wine Wednesdays for those that want to network. But it's an opportunity to really meet a lot of people. But Atlanta Tech Park is even more than that, right? Because they have a reach into the Southeast
Yes.
through the venture capitalist funds that they work with. So it's a great place to be able to network and possibly even get a venture capital introductions
Absolutely.
and if you need an event space, this is a perfect place for it.
They're building a beautiful ecosystem where it brings entrepreneurs from different backgrounds, different types of businesses. With here, the Southwest Gwinnett Chamber,
Right.
there's banks on site, there's business consultants, advisors, marketing experts. So, just going through the hallways, you get all these different viewpoints to help you improve your business.
And the businesses here, once they get bigger, like Rebus and some others, they expand out and take office space in Technology Park, actually,
Excellent.
which is where we're sitting. And we're actually sitting on the Curiosity Lab at Peachtree Corners, right? The 1.5 mile autonomous vehicle track,
Yep.
the Living Lab.
The Living Lab, where now you'll see scooters starting to appear out
E-scooters,
there.
yeah,
E-scooters that are able to return back to a spot. You could order them by phone. So this entire environment just really brings out entrepreneurial innovation, and just glad to be here with
Yeah.
the podcast.
With the autonomous environment, smart city, the whole 9 yards. And the funny part is, well, not the funny part, because really it's 5G enabled through Sprint, right?
Yep.
So it's wireless, it's IoT, it's the Internet of Everything. It's lights talking to cars, cars talking to apps. It's a living environment where people are crossing the street, cars are moving in and out. So unlike any other place actually in the country, almost is what this is. But the backbone of it is our lead sponsor, and that's Hargrave Fiber. You got to bring the internet into the place to be able to do the 5G enable, right? So Hargrave Fiber does that. They are the backbone of Curiosity Lab at Peachtree Corners.
Absolutely. Glad to have them. If you think of the infrastructure that's needed to power this, and if you have business services that you need and wireless and internet and so on, they're a great company to reach out to and help you with all those needs.
Absolutely. So if you want to find out more, atlantatechpark.com for this place, and also hargravefiber.com if you need enterprise level or even small business level fiber solutions where they can bring in and customize a solution. By the way, they're local, which means you're not dealing with the cable guy. So you have someone right there, and they're really involved in the community. So it's something good.
That's one of the great things about Georgia. There's all these companies and industries that are thriving, and one of those that's really taking off right now is the entertainment industry. I think in the last 2 years, Georgia was at worst second, if not first place, in a number of film produced here. A lot of the Marvel Disney films are produced here and filmed here, and it's really driven the economy of the area. And there's going to be a generation of entrepreneurs and business people that's going to grow up in this ecosystem that's going to be creating new movies, new production,
Right.
just like Hollywood was maybe 50 years ago. Atlanta is the Hollywood of the South. And today's guest is Chris DeBlasio. He's with a local entertainment and production company called Agency 850 and 850 Entertainment. He's got a great background both as actor in films, working in industry, and he's been able to merge his passions around the entertainment industry with entrepreneurship in some really creative ways. And so, Chris, I want to thank you for joining us today and welcome you to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to start off with, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this area of the business?
Yeah. Originally I hail from New Jersey. So I started out actually in advertising. I sold yellow pages. Did that throughout Jersey, New York. I've always had a knack for sales. I did really well at that. But I had a passion for film and television business. And an advisor came to me. One of my really good friends said, "Hey, you're only going to be young once. You're living so close to New York. You got to go do it. So I went to the School for Film and Television in Manhattan. I studied both sides of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
I had a bunch of private coaches as an actor, and fortunately, I was hired by ABC early on, and was on this soap opera called One Life to Live for a while, and bounced around on some of the New York shows, and then I got the bug, and so in 2007, I moved out to LA to do more movies. I just didn't want to get pigeonholed as a soap actor, so I went out there, and that was during the writer's strike. So perfect timing, so it was a little bit difficult because work started drying up, and a lot of the shows just kind of stopped. And so for me, I never bust tables or anything like that. And not that there's anything wrong with it. I've just always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and so I always had to figure out, well, how am I going to make a living doing this? So in 2007, when smartphones were becoming pretty popular, I noticed that there was another need. That websites weren't fitting on them, right? The print was really small. You had to do that pick and zoom thing to make it larger, right? And a lot of people in the entertainment business came to me and they said, "Hey, is there anything that we can do about this?" So what I did was I hired a bunch of developers and I created mobilized websites for people in the movie business, and it took off. And so we started doing some marketing for people in the movie business out in LA, and that's actually how the ad agency started. We started adding products and services, and it just grew from there.
Wow. So when you started and you saw what the future was happening, how mobile started changing the dynamic, what were some of those early trends and things that you saw, you tapped into that helped you grow the business?
Well, 2007, if you guys remember QR codes.
Sure.
So
Still around,
and I thought this was quite interesting. I didn't know where it was going to go, but I always try to look ahead. I'm a visionary by heart, so I'm always looking at, all right, what's coming down the line, right? And so whether it was the QR codes or definitely it was the mobile websites, because that's where the future was going. There was more smartphones being made and shipped, and so I said, okay, well, this makes sense. So what I did was I utilized those QR codes on the back of DVD boxes and the back of actors' resumes. So when you scan it, either an actor's demo reel pops up or the trailer of the movie. And this was when we were really pushing. This was when DVDs were still relevant, right? So you can go to a Blockbuster, which is not even around anymore, right? But you can go to a video store and pull these from the shelf and then scan it and see what that movie's about on your phone.
That was cool. I never saw that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, fast forward to today, QR codes never really got to where I guess they were trying to get to. I mean, you see them around evermore, but they're not really utilized like they were. So that was kind of like a catalyst in me kind of getting into learning more about mobile, more about the marketing end of how to reach people where they're at, and they're on their smartphones.
Oh, sure. I mean, most websites, it's either 60-70% of the traffic is from there. And for most things, it's all the traffic, right?
Yeah.
Movie trailers is probably all the traffic, almost like 90%, right?
Yeah.
It's so true. And it's unfortunate when you'll see a lot of business owners' websites and they're not optimized for mobile. And how do you help them make the argument of the investment to right-size their website so that it could attract because most don't think they need to.
Or even to make that decision to develop the website as mobile first.
Right.
Because you don't it could be mobile first because how much traffic do you get to the desktop portion?
Correct.
And it depends on whether they're business to business even.
Right.
And who's really looking at that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's all desktop.
Well, it fascinates me because, I mean, there's way more traffic going to the mobile version of your website than there is on desktop. It's the way that we are now. It's the way the world is, And so there's several reasons why you would want to make sure that your website's mobile friendly. And one of the biggest things is Google several years ago released an update saying, hey, if your website's not mobile optimized, you're not going to get ranked as well.
Right.
You know, so
Oh,
so there's a
yeah.
lot of relevancy. You know, Google's all about, you know, making it very, very user friendly. They're and making the most relevant information pop up first. And if your website's not mobile optimized, you're at the bottom of the
And
list.
talking about video too, I mean, you've heard of sitemaps, right?
Yep.
So sitemaps are essentially over the website, but there's video sitemaps also. So if you are heavy on video, you want to be able to do a video sitemap. I mean, just this way Google knows that you're there, and that's how you get those string of the carousel videos that pop up sometimes on your Google searches. It's because of that stuff.
So as everybody started moving more to mobile, and along with that is this explosion of video. But even though as video started exploding, the use case of video tends to be limited in certain areas. The music industry and the entertainment industry obviously is far out ahead on that. When you start looking at more Main Street businesses, or even professional services, folks that might be the brand for their business, I don't see them leveraging a fraction of the capability of video. How do you help people bring that into the picture?
Video, and we've been saying this for several years, is video is king, especially in a marketing capacity, because you're hitting the visual, you're also hitting the audio, and if it's done properly, you're also transcribing all these videos, so you actually have the written word as well. So with one medium, one main medium, which would be the video, you can reach all the markets. You can reach podcasts, you can reach the audio, you can reach the written word if everything is transcribed, right? So our philosophy in our company, and one of the things that we do is help with personal branding and help people to help push content, is that we want to make sure that they're found everywhere, but we always start with video. I mean, it helps all my guys are movie guys, you know, they're all TV guys and producers and stuff like that, so it's in our wheelhouse. But yeah, video, in no matter what business you have, you've got to be leveraging video, and there's also the search element too, because that is where everybody is consuming content. It's the most amount of content consumption is video on the web. So those things are getting ranked higher. So if you have recurring video and you have constant video and updates on your website, that's also going to help you rank higher. So it's very important for any business owner to leverage video in the capacity.
So how are you as a business, as an agency, how are you finding clients? And when you bring them in, what is it that you do with them?
So there's two sides of our company, right? So one side of our company, you know, we work in the movie business, so we do like product placement, product integration, we do a lot of branded entertainment stuff, we'll do marketing for the movies. And then the other side is personal branding specifically for CEOs and creating thought leaders. So what we find is that people know that they're supposed to keep an updated LinkedIn profile. They're supposed to be posting, they're supposed to be liking, but a lot of times either A, they don't know how, or B, they just don't have the time to do it, and they need somebody to help them, you know, stay accountable and push content. And so that's the other side of our company that we focus on, is helping specific CEOs push content, creating their own podcast, and the value of creating their own podcast, the value of creating their own show, you know, and creating recurring content, because there's so many different things that you're able to do with video, with podcasts. I mean, it helps your brand image. It helps, you know, equity, you know, brand equity, your brand equity, and ultimately people do business with who they know and who they trust.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm curious, I want to peel that back a little bit. So specifically, what type of businesses you've seen really could take advantage of bringing video into how they present themselves to the public?
I firmly believe it can work in any capacity, because no matter what industry you're in, you are a thought leader in your field, right? You could be a thought leader in your field. And sometimes the more obscure thing that you're doing, the more narrow the market. And if you're the only one in that market pushing content, you literally could capitalize on that market. But I find like a lot of people, like speakers and business coaches and attorneys and plastic surgeons, like people that would buy you as the service, even more so you need to be branding yourself, because they're buying you.
So I'm curious. I'm going to play that out.
Yep.
What if we say, I'm going to pick a field like accounting. Right now, we're getting into tax seasons, and
Mm-hmm.
all the accountants' heads are down,
Mm-hmm.
working on people's financials. How would an accountant leverage video, digital media, some of the things that you're bringing from the entertainment industry?
Mm-hmm.
How can they leverage that specifically to brand themselves, to drive leads? What would that look like?
I'm even so somebody in accounting and finance, right? I would say start a finance type podcast or finance type show, much like this, right? So we've got audio going, but we've got some cameras going. We're hitting live, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing that, but doing a finance show, updates and what's going on, far as like tax updates and what are the different codes that are coming out, whatever, right? Spreading your knowledge, and there's a great deal of wealth behind that in value to where you're developing yourself as a thought leader. People are getting to know who you are because they're getting to see you constantly, right? Because you're always putting out a show. Right. But then also guests on your show. We were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier. Is like it's a great way to network, and I don't know about you guys, but I networking events like they're overwhelming, and I think some people can argue, especially in the accounting field, that the numbers driven people that are got their heads down may not have the time to go out and network and do that. So if you have a podcast, you're inviting guests on your show that could potentially be leads for you.
It's more passive.
And it's
also.
passive.
It's not a sales pitch.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
They get to know you as they're discussing things.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Partnerships and stuff happen that way.
So how can you leverage? So one of the things that in the entertainment industry, they leverage quality storytelling, and there's other things that make something interesting. When I've seen people do it yourself videos, they could be, I don't know if the right term is two-dimensional. How do you make it three-dimensional? What were some tips you could offer somebody? If they said that I'm going to do a podcast or I'm going to do something video, what is it that the audience is going to want to see? To elements from entertainment?
What things could be actionable that they could actually do themselves, let's say, from your expert opinion?
So I always say there's a time to document and there's a time to create. Right. So documenting could be anything from your smartphone. You're documenting your day. You're giving maybe a message or something like that. Everybody's got a phone in their pocket with a camera, right? So there's no excuses. You can document your day. It's content. You're pushing content, and then there's creating an actual show or podcast. And the way our agency does it, and the way we help CEOs launch their podcast is that we start with the video, we record the video, we record the podcast, right? But then we also transcribe it. So you're hitting your market any which way they consume content, whether they watch, whether they listen, whether they read. And so to add an element of hey, there's more ways to consume the content. That's what they should be doing. Is you've got to you got to be everywhere, and making sure that it's not just either one platform or one specific market that consumes content a specific way.
What about someone were to launch a new company, so they may not have the track record yet, your experience in launching company. What are something I've been working with some entrepreneurs who are all in starting up their companies, and the conversation came up about funding for marketing. So when they're starting, they're really tight on it.
Yep.
But every one of them thought they would have something that would go quote unquote viral. But they didn't really have a budget to fund it. They didn't understand. They even thought about things like crowdfunding, like I can crowdfund or to get funds for the business. But they didn't realize the marketing and that needs to go into that.
Some people think you could go on Kickstarter or something similar, which is, I don't know.
GoFundMe, Kickstarter.
Right. And if you don't have the social presence, it's really hard to get that going. They think you started and people will come and...
So what's the pre-work? If you're sitting there thinking about launching something in the next 3 years, what are things you can do before that, so you build up, whether it's an audience or some kind of credibility to prepare you for that?
The biggest thing is just get started. Most people just keep putting it off because timing's not right, or it was just the holidays and I gained 5 pounds. I don't want to be on camera. Like they find an excuse for anything,
right.
And the only way that you're going to build an audience is if you just get started. And most people just find excuses to not get started. And you don't have to wait for the best equipment and the best lighting and just get started, because you have zero audience. You have got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Right.
You have everything to gain. And so everybody starts from zero. I did not have any type of social media or any type of Facebook, nothing, Instagram, nothing 5 years ago. And which is surprising, right, to some people, but for me, I was always in front of the camera. I avoided social media. I said, it's my private life, no one needs to do that. So I had a lot of catching up to do until I realized it's a business tool. So I immediately got started, and my first videos, like everybody's first videos, is crap. Like, just expect that. It's fine.
Right.
But you're building upon it. And the only way that you're going to build an audience is content over time. And that's the thing. The moment, the world is different now. The moment you post a video, the next couple of days, it's irrelevant. It's got to be constant videos. It's got to be constant contact, putting out on social media, and it's compounding over time. But the biggest thing that people just, they don't get started.
Do you find that when you're doing something like that, I mean, you're building a series of videos for a client, building their brand.
Yep.
Is it each one of them should be niched, should be answering a specific question? I mean, how do you get to that?
I tell every business owner or marketer out there is understand your audience. Because if you're not targeting the right audience, you're falling on deaf ears, right? You're just pushing out content, and it's just it's not specific. So understand who your audience is, who's going to be consuming your content, and also what platform they're consuming content. It's people are in a different frame of mind when they're on Facebook as opposed to LinkedIn. Right? You need to know how to speak to that audience as well. So it's more than just putting up a generic video and that's it. There's tagging, right? There's different things, and the more specific you can be to speak to that end consumer, the more effective your content's going to be.
Should you always have a call to action when you're doing things like that?
Well, I mean, it depends on the piece of content, right? So what I always say is no one wants to be sold. No one ever wants to be sold, right? The only way you can get leads or you can build a really good audience on social media is two ways: educate or entertain. That's it. You've got to provide value or entertain that person. And once that happens, the credibility and the trust starts happening, and then they start following you. And then eventually, because they're interested in you, they're interested in your product or service, eventually they may buy it from you. And that's how it works.
So you mentioned a couple of things. You said a term, tagging. Define what tagging is, and how do people use that?
So, I mean, there's hashtags, there's tagging people in posts, there's different things. You want to look at, number one, what is it that you're talking about, and highlight those things, inside some of the content, right? So if you say you're doing a leadership video and you're talking about team building, hashtag team building, hashtag entrepreneurship, hashtag whatever, right? Business coach, those types of things. Because when somebody is searching for content, a lot of times they're using hashtags, or they'll see what other hashtags people are following, and you can get discovered that way as well. So it's very important to make sure you have good tags.
Using tags, hashtags, and other ways to be able to tag. One of the things that you work on is product placement in film and TV and so on. I remembered years ago when folks started watching TiVo on demand. People stopped watching commercials, and you'd watch shows like in the middle of the show, all of a sudden Coca-Cola can popped in, and that was the way they started doing that. So that it was obvious at the time, and now you could see where it's becoming more commonplace.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about how has that evolved today?
Yeah.
How are people using product placement?
Really, who watches commercials? I mean, every time that skip button comes up, even the 5 seconds is painful for a lot of people. It's like you're hitting it before it even counts down, right? That happens a lot. And the thing is, I think what advertisers need to realize is the whole dynamic has changed because of on-demand type content. And again, being a visionary, I always look to, okay, well, where is the advertising going? Well, as a company, we can ingrain you in the narrative, the person is interested in the content they're watching, but we're ingraining your advertising into that content, it's going to make a lot stickier customer. Because if the chances that they're watching, your show on traditional cable and you're watching a show on traditional cable and then a commercial comes on, they happen to drop their phone, their remote falls off the other end, and they get somehow chained, to the bed or whatever, that was forced to watch that commercial, that's the only way they're going to see it, right? And they're not hungry. They don't get up to get food.
So, if you give us some examples where, whether it's a film or anything that people might have seen, where you saw it done really well, what is great in integrating?
There's great classic examples. So if I say a candy company and an alien, what movie do you guys think of?
E.T. Right. Yeah.
Perfect. Now most people don't know Reese's Pieces was going out of business. That movie saved it.
Wow.
That movie saved it because then that movie became synonymous with the candy.
So there, I remembered do you remember the Matrix?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the cars that they were in this big chase scene, and maybe it was the second Matrix? Do you remember what the cars were for that?
No.
So they were all General Motor cars. They were Cadillacs, General Motor cars. Okay. If you remember the Bond films, early ones, Aston Martin.
Right.
And there was 2 films where BMW snuck in.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll remember those things, and if you want to be James Bond-like, that might be the car you're doing. How did that translate with, so if you've got more video being produced, YouTube and all these different channels, can product placement work in those mediums?
Oh, absolutely.
The same way?
Yeah, absolutely. Because people are consuming content, specifically, on YouTube, digital content. We do something called branded entertainment, right? So as an agency, we can go to a company or a business and create a show, a narrative type show wrapped around the business. You see this in reality shows all the time, right? Yeah. I mean, there's always a business involved somehow, but it's a lottery ticket for a network to come to you and say, hey, we want to do a reality show on your business, right? So a lot of times clients will hire us to say, hey, we want to do a reality show. So we literally script out shows and then we put it on air, but it's advertising. It's paid advertising.
Yeah. How do you handle brand influencers? Do you deal with them also?
Yep. So influencers, right? They have sponsors, right? And so there's content, and sometimes we even use influencers in some of the projects that we do. It's strategic, right?
That's interesting. I wonder if you imagine a business owner creating a show, maybe posting through YouTube. They do something around that. And it could be around the problem they're solving, homeowners, repairs and home improvements and those types of things. Yeah. I remember seeing on YouTube once, someone did, you Google repairs, so fix a toilet, and you could find some videos on how to do that. But one did a really great job of explaining how to do things. But what I remember watching, it was maybe replacing a faucet handle. It was 15 minutes watching him do it. And then he gets to the part where he said, well, to take this out, it's just make one big twist and you pull it out. And I watched him for about 5 minutes trying to get that. And my conclusion from that was, I'm paying somebody to do that. Because it's a great way, because I'm fast. I thought I could do it myself, and I'm watching this video, which is just a simple YouTube.
Do you know what's funny? Whenever I search stuff like that, I filter it for 3 minutes and under. If they cannot tell me in 3 minutes how to do that, I'm not even going to bother.
But it's a great lead gen, because once you realize you can't do the thing for time, money, know-how, skill, expertise, tools, then now you've got the problem, and whoever, if they could tag that, or if they could lead you to them.
What we always tell people is give your best stuff for free. Just put it out there, because that's what's going to happen. People are going to be like, wow, this guy really knows his stuff, and keeps following, and then eventually it's like, man, I'm calling this guy, or girl, right? It's like they know their stuff. And so by putting out that content and the whole, it's funny because I'm exactly the same way, short video, give it to me quick. I'm looking to do something, I need it quick. Let's talk about that long format versus short format content, right? Some people like watching the entire 14 minutes. That would drive me insane, right? Some people need it quick, need it now. So there's ways that you can, and we do this in the agency, is we'll develop content where you have long format, but then we also have short, bite-sized pieces of content. So now you're capturing the audience that likes the short form content, but also specifically podcasts, that's long format.
Yeah.
You're sitting in Atlanta traffic, it drives me nuts if the podcast is only 3 minutes.
Right.
Because I'm going to be in traffic for another 40 minutes, right? So having long form content, there's a time and place for that as well.
And also, I think when you're doing that long form content, Instagram doesn't work that way, right? So you want something shorter.
Yeah.
So taking those snippets out and
Yes.
actually maybe repurposing that one podcast into 4 or 5 different posts.
Yep. That's exactly what
Is that
we
what
do.
you do?
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. So we'll get long form content, and then we'll take the best pieces of content out of that entire episode, and that'll feed the content machine for weeks.
Right.
I found one thing I started doing recently and been sharing with other business owners is you were talking about capturing what you're doing day to day.
Yep.
And so if I go to an activity, it could be volunteer, it could be anything, I try to remember I used to just snap a picture and post, but Rico, you helped show me, and I now take a small video.
Right.
And I only go for 30 seconds, if
So then
that, and post the video piece of what's going on in that activity, and I see a lot more response
Yes.
Yeah.
to that video. So I have the mix of, still versus video.
Those the little gimbal stabilizers,
Yeah.
$110 for an iPhone. I mean, I have one. I use it all the time. So.
Yeah, it's amazing. So these are small things that anyone can do.
Instagram stories are huge.
Yeah.
But if somebody wanted help with this, where can they go and learn more?
So, to find me, at Chris DeBlasio on any social media platform, you just, it's Chris, Chras, DeBlasio. That's me. Agency 850, so agency850.com is the company. Yeah, you can find us on any social media platform at this point.
So I'm curious, do you, I know you've been busy and so on. Do you got anything coming up or going on where folks can learn more about what you do? And
Yeah, we're constantly doing new shows and constantly creating, shows for thought leaders and whatnot. So we're releasing that stuff digitally. I mean, on the movie side, I do have a couple of projects that we're working on. Unfortunately, under NDA, I can't say anything on as this episode, but maybe we'll do a follow up. But we do have an Atlanta-based series that just got greenlit. So.
Oh, fabulous. Well, I want to thank you
Yeah.
for coming out and chatting with us. I always like, looking at how to improve a business from a different angle. And there's things that, the entertainment industry, Hollywood, film, done really well. And when I see small businesses, at times it could feel it's arm length away. But I'm learning that as technology changes, as people's taste changes, people are following YouTube series just as much as they are something on Netflix and so on, if it speaks to them.
There are more people that are following the Joe Rogan experience than there were that watch The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I mean, the podcasts and recurring content, especially digitally, now's the time to get on it. And if you don't know how to do it yourself, there's companies like ours that can do it.
Right.
Oh, that's fabulous. Well, thank you very much for coming in. And we want to thank Atlanta Tech Park again for hosting the podcast. Great place to come and work with other entrepreneurs, network, attend some of the events here. If you're looking for a great environment and a place to work, and it's a good place to come and check out and get a tour and see if that works for you. I'm Karl Barham with Transworld Business Advisors. It's been a pleasure to work and work in the Georgia Metro Atlanta community, helping business owners figure out exit strategies for the business when it's time to sell. We have a team in place that can help them do that. But even if they're not ready to sell, we're able to help advise people on the best things they can do to increase the value of their business. So if you ever wanted to consult with somebody around that, just reach out to www.tworld.com/Atlanta Peachtree. Schedule an appointment with one of our consultants. And Rico, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've got coming up?
Sure. So if you want to find me, LinkedIn, Rico Figliolini, or you go to mightyrockets.com if you're looking for some portfolio stuff on my end. I do everything from product videos to social media content and branding. So you can find me there. I also produce Peachtree Corners magazine. It's a 6-time-a-year magazine in the city of Peachtree Corners. This coming issue, we're going to, hopefully, if everything works well, our cover story is about youth sports. There's some other stories in there doing good, homegrown nonprofits, and we're covering this other stories. I mean, every issue is hopefully chock full of things that people can look
Absolutely.
at. You could go to livinginpeachtreecorners.com to learn about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Follow us on all the usual sites, Facebook.
You can, well, you should, if you're not seeing this on Facebook, go to Peachtree Corners Life, like that page, and then you'll get alerted when we go live. Or go to Instagram, and you can find us by searching The Capitalist Sage, and you find us there and just follow that.
Yep.
But
subscribe to us on iTunes.
iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, FM, I think it's FM something, I forget what it's called, but anywhere you find a podcast, we're fed out there. So just
and
subscribe
and share with other folks. If you've got folks that are busy, if they're stuck in traffic, if they want a bite-sized amount of information about different things to help them improve their business, check out The Capitalist Sage.
And leave a review too, because that'll help get us up in the rankings a little bit. So.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, thank you, everyone. We'll look forward to chatting with you and bringing you more great guests. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Appreciate it.